This is the program that shows you the side of police chase videos they didn't want you to see. Bungled arrests, kamikaze crooks, and cop-based carnage of all kinds. Welcome to Cops Uncut, the real car crash TV.
On my way.
Coming up in Cops Uncut, a runaway practices his ploughing, how not to do a U-turn, and the cop who doesn't know when to stop. The magic of the movies has made us believe that many crazy stunts are possible, but the guy in the car ahead is about to get a very painful reminder of what happens when you try to pull off Hollywood-style tricks in real life. Wanted for traffic violations, the man leads the police for several miles of wholly unremarkable car chase action. But all of a sudden, he does the unthinkable. At 40 miles an hour, he decides to bail out and tumbles head over heels on the hard tarmac. Being American, he expects to pick himself up, dust himself down, and walk away. But this is Cops Uncut, and the man has hurt himself very badly indeed. And look, he's not finished yet. Even after he's dragged to the side of the road and cuffed, the suspect still finds the energy for a very wobbly escape maneuver. But the cops know that this guy isn't going anywhere in the state he's in. They read him his rights, though somehow we don't think he'll be too interested. What this man needs right now is an ambulance and a new pair of knees. So the next time you watch a Hollywood blockbuster, remember those stuntmen get paid a fortune for good reason. And no matter how easy it may look, don't try that at home.
260 at the corner. On my way.
Ever wondered who's responsible for those mysterious crop circles? Maybe it's not little green men at all. Perhaps it's people like this runaway Colorado crook, who's decided the best way to escape the cops is to take a convenient shortcut through a field. Leaving a trail of flattened cabbages, the suspect kidnapper plows his way merrily through the farmer's produce until he hits a dirt track.
Went through a fence.
But it's not long before he off-roads again to churn up more of this year's harvest. For a brief instant, the chase becomes relatively normal when the fugitive finds a regular road to drive on. But determined to carry on his tradition of unconventional escape, he decides to pretend he's a train driver and takes to the tracks.
Holy smokes. May get hairy here in a minute. He lost his tailgate. Gotta go down the railroad. Holy smokes.
And you don't have to be Einstein to know this isn't a good idea.
He's gonna cut over on, took out part of the bridge on the railroad crossing.
Thankfully, the Orient Express was somewhere else. It looks like commuters can expect delays on this line tomorrow. Suddenly seeming to get bored with his truck, the suspect finds a nice place to park and takes the opportunity to stretch his legs. Like some kind of mental Rambo, the half-naked crim heads into the cover of some bulrushes. Out of sight and obviously out of his mind, it looks like he might be pretending to be a bush. But the chopper spots him again.
There he is, in the water. In the water.
He doesn't make a very big splash. In fact, the suspect seems to be running out of stupid things to do. So as he gets out of the stream, he gives a big friendly wave to his friends in the helicopter. But he realizes there's probably nowhere else to run, So when the police turn up, he demonstrates that in certain circumstances it's better to have a little lie down. While our bare-chested buffoon is being cuffed, the farmer appears, shotgun in hand. He's hopping mad because the aliens have been at his cabbages again. This crop circle crook obviously came from the wrong side of the tracks. But when he finally ran out of steam, he just lay down and took it like a man. Still to come on Cops Uncut. There's nowhere to turn for this cop. A runaway car thief burns all the rubber available, and a traffic stop turns into a fist fight. Police Academy Lesson 312, Boxing. When policemen refer to boxing, they're not actually talking about going 12 rounds with their suspect in the ring, though some cops might enjoy that. Boxing is in fact a kind of rolling roadblock maneuver that officers often use to try and stop a fleeing traffic felon.
Get it, box him in, 230, box him in.
You'll need several police cars to pull off a box. 2 just isn't enough. And depending on how good your fellow American police drivers are, you'll quite often find your suspect slipping through a 3-car box as well. In fact, when it comes to it, we don't particularly recommend the box maneuver at all. Because if you really want to put an end to a chase, then nothing screams stop quite as effectively as a good old-fashioned sucker punch. With your suspect's motor KO'd, now it's time for a lot of shouting and smashing. And who knows, you might even get to squeeze in a jab, a hook, or an uppercut or 2 after all.
David 743.
When they're not getting a hard time from drunk drivers and psychopaths, cops can often be found winning new friends around the community. This helpful officer has decided to pull over the woman ahead to tell her that her MOT is out. Naturally, the lady is keen to show him her gratitude.
Why are you pulling me over?
Why am I pulling you over, ma'am? Your inspection sticker is expired. Can I see your driver's license, please?
Oh, here you go. Just make me a little later to work.
Okay, ma'am.
Looks like someone got out of bed the wrong side.
Have you had very many or any other tickets in the last 5 years?
Do what?
Have you had very many or any
No,
other
I have not.
tickets?
No.
You haven't? Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
God.
Ma'am, I'll be...
In fact, this is a barefaced lie.
Wait right there.
Great. Thank you.
Stay where it's warm.
When the cop goes back to check her details, it turns out that his sulky suspect has had nearly 25 tickets over the years and been involved in no fewer than 4 crashes. No wonder she's got a problem with authority figures.
Okay, ma'am, here's your license and your insurance back.
Thank you so much. And you know what?
Have you got a phone number, ma'am?
Oh, sure. 752-1788. Are you going to call and prank call me?
No.
Oh, really? What a surprise. You know, I wonder how it feels giving people tickets for nothing else.
Okay, ma'am, let me explain something to you.
What?
This citation...
But the policeman's patience holds out, and he keeps his cool even when his suspect has completely lost hers.
$18.
Well, what a job in life.
Once he's served his ticket, the patrolman quickly wraps up the formalities.
The number for the court clerk is on the back.
Oh, thank you.
The court date is the 16th day of April.
And it's fairly safe to assume that these two aren't particularly sorry to see the back of each other.
Why do I get these?
Some people just don't react very well to being stopped by the cops.
Why are you pulling me over?
But given this woman's track record,
That's none of your business.
you'd have thought she'd be used to it by now.
Why do I get these? Taking off again.
Someone really should have told these 2 Dallas bank robbers that using a canary yellow Mustang as a getaway car might make them look ever so slightly conspicuous. Particularly from the vantage point of a helicopter. Whichever way they turn, the chopper keeps a watchful eye on them from above. Finally, the 2 crooks have the good sense to ditch their glaringly obvious ride. Their latest escape plan seems to involve losing themselves in the crowds of a local shopping mall. Perhaps they intend on spending some of their newly acquired cash while they're at it. But sadly for the young robbers, this mall just happens to be crawling with cops. And it's not long before the fugitives find themselves well and truly busted. These dumb criminals made some pretty silly choices. They chose the brightest car color available. Then they ditched the motor, ran into a shopping mall and bought themselves a one-way ticket to jail. When a police car's in a high-speed vehicle pursuit, it's usually a good idea to stay out of its way. And by staying out of its way, we generally mean not driving your car directly into its path. This will usually have reasonably devastating consequences for everyone involved. Luckily, no one was injured here, but neither of these vehicles will be back on the roads any day soon. And the speeding truck that the cop was chasing before his head-on encounter sadly got away. Still to come on Cops Uncut. A runaway criminal gets caught after setting fire to his car. A van driver hides in a bush. And a speeding ticket causes this bloke to completely lose his rag.
260 at the corner. On my way.
High in the skies above LA, this chopper spots a pair of car thieves on the run. Quite why they've bothered to nick this Honda is beyond us. It's barely worth 50 quid. Soon it'll be worth even less. All the same, the driver and his passenger are determined to avoid being caught at any cost.
Going at least 100 miles an hour right now, at least 100 miles an hour.
That's why they've been fleeing the cops at terrifying speeds through busy roads. And then out into the wide, empty desert. But after more than 3 hours of police chase action, the highway troopers are quite keen on bringing this episode to a close.
He hit the spike strip. We'll see what happens.
But even though his tyres have been shredded by the dreaded stinger, the driver just plows on. His passenger, though, has other ideas. Now flying solo and running on his rims, the chase slows down considerably.
The right rear tire is completely locked up. It's not even spinning.
But the shower of sparks eventually set fire to the Honda's fuel line. And when things get too hot to handle, the man has no option but to bail.
The car is on fire. This guy is going to have to get out of the vehicle now because the vehicle is on fire, and we'll see what happens there. He gets up. He says, "I've had enough." Gets out of the vehicle. He's being ordered backwards.
This old nail was barely worth boosting in the first place, but now it's just a smoking ruin. Perhaps if the driver and his henchman had bailed out earlier, then this hot pursuit might not have gone up in smoke. Fleeing the cops in a car is one thing, but so many crooks seem to forget that abandoning your wheels in favor of a foot chase is virtually guaranteed to lead to your capture. So before you pull over and leg it, take a look up. If you can see a police chopper, it's bound to be equipped with an infrared camera. And while you might assume that you'll easily outrun the fat cops, you're almost certainly no match for their canine companion, who'll sniff you out and sink his teeth into your leg in a heartbeat. Unless you can distract the animal by, say, throwing a stick, he'll almost certainly hold on long enough for the cops to catch up, and possibly even longer. In fact, it may well take something of a tug of war to detach his slobbering chops from your juicy thigh. So before you ditch your ride and hot-foot it down a dark alley, look to the skies. If you see a chopper, you'll know you'll come a cropper. Oh, and beware of the dog. Rover isn't always man's best friend. Still to come, a patient cop at a traffic stop. And if you go down to the woods today, you're in for a big surprise. How to get arrested. The average American cop may be the size of a house, but occasionally you'll find yourself pulled over by the runt of the litter. At this point, you have two choices. You could just lie back and accept defeat at the hands of your diminutive officer. But if you really want to cause some trouble, you could try dispensing a little criminal justice of your own. Pee-wee will probably try to run away, but he's bound to fall over sooner or later. And if he tries to squeal for help, or throws you a pathetic punch, then simply get the puny policeman off camera and pummel him some more. It could only happen in America. Over to Michigan now for another incendiary situation. The guy behind the wheel has somehow managed to start his car and promptly fallen asleep. Nodding off while you're parked is, generally speaking, a lot less disastrous than falling asleep while you're actually driving. But in this instance, the driver has dozed off with his foot on the accelerator. So his engine has overheated and set the car on fire. Courageous officers braved the potential powder keg to rescue the dozing man. Then one officer tries to put out the fire, but his efforts only seem to make matters much, much worse. He retreats to safety, and the cops decide they're probably better off leaving the blaze to the professionals. So they put out a call to the local fire station, and while they wait for the fire engine to turn up, they stand around and admire the colourful flames. Meanwhile, as he comes round in the back of the police cruiser, the dozy driver is questioned by a cop.
Other than being intoxicated, are you all right?
I'm a little in shock.
Despite being parked outside a bar, it transpires that this is one of the very few stupid incidents not caused by drink. This man just happens to be taking medication that makes him very, very sleepy. So next time you see the words "may cause drowsiness," remember these images before you get behind the wheel. Because you could just nod off at an inappropriate moment and wake up trapped inside your very own personal barbecue.
Taking off again.
If this Nebraska traffic trooper had ever watched Cops Uncut,
Make sure your operator's license and registration, please.
he'd realize that a big beaten-up van usually equals big, big trouble.
Sir, I asked to see your operator's license, and I'd like to see it now, please. Sir?
After chasing the van through the Nebraska countryside for half the night, the officer begins to tire of the game and orders the runaway to stop.
Driver, pull over. Driver, pull over.
But when the cop said pull over, he didn't mean this.
Subject County 405 desires ambulance. Need an ambulance. Subject just deliberately drove into some trees, the curve north.
While they wait for the emergency services, the officer clambers through the shrubbery to make sure his suspect's okay.
Hey, buddy, you okay?
Unfortunately, he isn't.
Take it easy, man. 405 Custer County. Subject is conscious, heavy bleeding.
But the hospital is close by. In fact, they passed it earlier. And it doesn't take long for the ambulance to arrive. Which is lucky, because this forest fiasco looks very painful indeed.
Need an ambulance.
260 at the corner.
On my way.
It's quite common for people to react badly when they're stopped by a traffic cop for speeding. But the bloke in the car ahead is a ticking time bomb of fury. The irritable finger drumming on the roof of the car is clearly a warning sign. But the officer takes no notice, casually strolling towards the seething suspect.
You want to roll down your window, sir? You know why I stopped you? What's that?
At first, the only trouble seems to be a bit of a communications issue.
All right.
But it's obvious this guy has deeper problems. And it's his rearview mirror that bears the brunt of his rage. As a further demonstration of his psychosis, he rips up some random pieces of paper and chucks them out the window. Now he's guilty of littering, and the cop has some harsh words with him.
Tell you what, sir. If you don't get out and pick all this stuff up, I'm going to give you a citation for... You got a problem, sir?
The trooper looks on as the head case stomps around, picking up his rubbish. The officer's been as patient as a saint, but Mr. Furious just doesn't seem to get it, and gives him yet another salvo.
Oh, thank you, guys. That ain't my fucking $100 bill, either.
Tell you what, sir. This is your first warning right now. Okay? You got some over here, too.
And while the officer checks the man's license records over the radio,
Left entry speed violation 95.
the guy blatantly gives the finger. Even then, the cop doesn't break his cool.
Hey, sir, I need your signature right here on the side of the citation. Not admitting any guilt, just that you're receiving a copy of the citation and that you'll either appear in court or pay the fine. If you do want to appear in court, you can't appear in
So,
court.
if you ever find yourself getting stopped by a traffic cop in the States, do make sure you choose this one.
I'm going to give you a citation for... You got a problem, sir?
Because tolerance and patience aren't usually words associated with American
Tell you what,
cops.
sir, this is your first warning right now.
260 at the corner.
On my way.
So, today's highlights. How not to get out of a car. A runaway crook ran rings round this farmer's field. More routine police violence. The worst getaway car in the world. A Honda gets heated. And that rare thing, a nice American cop. Be careful out there.